H1B visa time. The clock starts ticking every day as that important date in immigration, April 1, comes closer. As many of you already know, April 1 marks the first day that USCIS accepts H1B petitions for the federal government's fiscal year beginning on October 1st. As per regulations, employers can file H1B petitions no earlier than 6 months in advance of the anticipated start date, which makes April 1 beginning of the race for obtaining an H1B visa. We have to do that before the cap is reached. While this has been much more important in the recent past, before the recent slowdown in the use of H1Bs, it is still important to properly prepare for filing. What's happened in the past? In 2008, USCIS received 150,000 applications for 65,000 H1B slots in just the first 2 days after the filing period started on April 1st. In 2007, the H1B cap was reached in just 1 day, and USCIS conducted a lottery to randomly choose petitions for processing. In the first 2 days, USCIS received 123,480 cap subject H1B petitions, amounting to nearly a double of the amount of annual allotment of 65,000 visas. The U.S. Master's cap that exempts the first 20,000 petitions on behalf of beneficiaries who obtained an advanced degree at a U.S. institution of higher learning was exhausted on April 30th in 2008. This was merely a continuation of the pattern that has been occurring over the past several years, where each year the cap was reached earlier than the year before. Let's look at the application timeline. Though it is not a guarantee that your petition would be selected for processing, if you follow this suggested H1B timeline, you will have maximized your efforts to ensure timely and successful filing of your H1B petition. All right, as soon as possible, identify your H1B needs, discuss this strategy with your VisaPro immigration attorney, and finalize an applicant's list. Develop detailed job descriptions and obtain prevailing wage determinations. Early February, obtain educational evaluations if your applicants have foreign degrees. Early March, file your LCA with the Department of Labor and begin gathering or complete gathering supporting documentation. By mid-March, prepare all H1B forms, support letter, and other required supporting documentation. March 31st, this is the key date. Mail the petition to USCIS for delivery on April 1st. All right, let's look at a case. It is late January and you have just had 2 potential clients come in to your office for consultations. Now you need to advise them on the filing procedures and timing so they can meet their objectives. Jason is a software engineer that is working on his optional practical training, his OPT, for a company that develops software to track goods throughout the supply chain process. His company wants to keep him for the next several years and needs to get him an H1B. His current OPT expires in July. They need to get a petition filed early so he can be assured of getting a visa and so that Jason can take advantage of the cap gap rules and continue working through the October 1 start date with his OPT. Jorge has a PhD in molecular biology and has been conducting research in a lab at a university in New York City while he's been here in H1B status. He has just been offered a research position at a pharmaceutical development company that wants to build on his research and his expertise. Jorge already has an H1B, so he doesn't have to worry about the cap, right? Not necessarily. It is most likely that Jorge was not counted under the cap because he is working for a university and in a position that would have been exempt. He will have to file early enough to be sure that he also can get an October 1 start date. Tips for employers in implementing the H1B visa timeline. Check to see if the individual you plan to hire is subject to the cap. When looking to hire an individual who already has been in H1B status, it is important to determine whether this person has been previously counted toward the cap. For example, if you are hiring someone who has worked for a university and thus qualified for a cap exemption, Jorge, this person would have to be counted towards the cap now because they were not previously counted. 2. Obtain educational equivalency evaluations now. For any person who graduated from a non-U.S. institution of higher learning, it is important to obtain a degree equivalency evaluation that will be submitted with the H1B petition. Waiting until the last minute could mean that you will not be able to obtain the evaluation in a timely manner. This is because degree evaluation services tend to be inundated with requests right up to the beginning of the H1B season. File your labor condition application and start the public access file. Before any employer can file an H1B visa, they must first file a labor condition application with the U.S. Department of Labor. Don't forget that on or within 30 days before the date of the filing of the LCA, the employer is responsible for posting the LCA form or a notice of the intent to obtain an H1B at 2 conspicuous locations in the place of employment for at least 10 days. All records related to the LCA filing should be kept in a public access file. 4. Consider filing for more than one person for the same position. In years where it appears that the cap will be reached within days of the initial filing date, one way to address the cap issue is to file an H1B petition for more than one qualified person, and this will improve your company's chances of getting at least one approval. If, however, it doesn't appear that the cap will be reached that quickly, this is not necessary. All right, based on what happened in 2007 and 2008, it is fairly clear that as the economy recovers, USCIS will once again institute a lottery system to randomly choose petitions for processing. In 2008, about 1 in 2 petitions was chosen for processing. In future years, that ratio could get even worse, could go as high as 1 in 4. If you have identified more than one suitable candidate, it may be worth your investment to file for more than one person than you had initially planned. It is wise to at least take this option into consideration when making your H1B decisions. All right, we've looked at a number of things. The competition for the coveted H1B visa has been intensifying over the years. While we have seen a drop-off in the use of H1B visas during the economic downturn, we anticipate an increase to previous levels or higher levels in the near future. Filing early may no longer be a guarantee of obtaining an H1B visa. It is becoming a prerequisite for even being considered. With this in mind, it is important that every company interested in sponsoring an H1B worker plan ahead with the H1B application timeline and prepare to file the non-immigrant visa petition in a timely manner. VisaPro specializes in serving individual and corporate clients in various countries all across the world. With the help of our VisaPro H1B visa timeline, we have successfully handled H1B petitions for a variety of clients ranging from one-man startup firms to multinational companies, from software engineers to market research analysts, fashion models, optometrists, medical technologists, organic farm managers, social workers.